Hey everybody, welcome to the Fall Quartet reading with Moontide Press. We're super excited to be here today. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to our amazing 4 authors who will be reading amazing poetry for you today. And thank you for everybody in the audience tonight, this afternoon, tonight. Time means nothing anymore. It is a myth. I love this quartet reading series. We had our last one in September. This is going to be our last one for the year, but this is not our last one ever. We will be having these moving forward into 2021. I love the idea of a quartet. I love the idea of bringing 4 poets together and having this amazing kind of chemistry between those 4 poets. And I think you're going to see that today with the poets that we've selected to read for you. I used to host a poetry reading at a wine bar in Whittier called Vina Taro. And it was such a cool spot because I would always have 4 poets and they would read and there'd be wine. I'm not encouraging my audience to drink. That'd be wrong. But if you have a beverage of any sort, it makes it more fun, whether it be tea, water, Mountain Dew, whiskey, wine, coffee, Ensure, whatever. It's just, you know, we're all here, we're having a good time, and we're raising a glass with one another. So the quartet reading has always been something that I wanted to reestablish with Moontide when I took over the press, and didn't get a chance to. I was in talks with some restaurants and bars before the pandemic happened, but then the pandemic happened and I decided to make it a Zoom quartet reading. It's been going great so far, and it's a very great intimate space to introduce you to some of our past and future writers. And that's definitely something I've been trying to encourage with the quartet reading, having it be past and future writers. So what you're going to see today are 2 past Moontide authors, and certainly not forgotten, not past like, oh, they're far in the past and we've forgotten about them. No, they're very present and relevant, but also bring in future Moontide writers who have books coming out in 2021. So today we have for you HanaLena Fennel, author of Letters to the Leader. We have Dania Ayah Alkhouli, author of Contortionist Tongue. We have Rob Sturma, author of Head Be Heart. And we have Kelly Gray, author of Instructions for an Animal Body. And I'm super, super excited to hear from each of them tonight. So I'm going to just dive right in and bring up our first reader. At certain points in the evening, I will bring up links to things that you can support, purchase, or things you should know. But we'll get to that later. And then at the end of the reading, if we have time and if there is desire, we're gonna have a Q&A where you can ask questions in the chat, and I will moderate and ask that of the poets. So think of questions while you guys are watching this reading. Please think of questions that you may want to ask any of the poets or all the poets. If there are no questions, I'm just going to come up with embarrassing ones to ask of them, which I know 3 of these poets very personally. Sorry, Kelly. I don't, but I feel like I'm going to get to know you tonight. So that said, thank you all so much for coming out, spending your Saturday afternoon with us. I'm going to bring up our first poet. HanaLena Fennel was born in Oregon and raised in California. She spent most of her life surrounded by people, but slightly misplaced, brazenly bisexual, and aggressively awkward. This is true. HanaLena is a mother of a small zoo of children and animals. Recently a wayward lizard that's found itself into her loving home called Felix. After having artwork and poems published in various anthologies and collections, her first full book of poetry, Letters to the Leader, is now available from Moontide Press. HanaLena is currently an associate editor for the online journal Freeze Ray, more on that later. HanaLena's weekly prompts, artwork, and support can be found on her Patreon, and I'll include that link a little later. She's also an incredible community supporter, friend, and chef of impeccable food. In parentheses, it says, if you've been to some of our past events, you know what we're talking about, exclamation point. I'm pretty sure she did not write that about herself in the bio that she sent me. I think that was somebody else chiming in with pure truth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome HanaLena, everybody.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Yeah, Dania definitely added stuff. I love it. So my book, Letters to the Leader, which came out last year, if time is real, I don't know anymore, uh, was written in response to the first 55 executive orders signed during Trump's presidency. So that was the first year of executive orders. And right now, I'm in kind of a celebration stage, but it does merit the question, what happens to a book in response to a president if that person definitely isn't going to be president anymore? And so I've been going through my book a lot and realizing that while these are responses to very clear executive orders, none of the poems have really changed. The environment still is a thing to speak to, and my personal responses still have some room to be a part of the conversation, I think. So I'm going to start with this one. Tall Tales. When I was a child, America was full of giants. Once a huge man with an axe, left footprints as large as lakes in his wake, ate through logging towns, felled entire forests with a single swipe, worked better alone, but always had his babe. The cowboy was never filmed with cows in the same shot. That was left for off-screen vaqueros. American cowboys got stars and big guns. Never missed. Never left the shootout to find those clapboard houses offer no protection for the family cowering inside. The child in the gingham dress is still a corpse, no matter which gang shot her. The hammerman we loved for his size, he was too dumb to quit, even as it killed him. Nobody worried about teaching his big black hands a skill. We just cheered on from the bandstands in the desert as America's sacrificial gladiators fought the machines that were meant to save him. As a child, I only knew one thing of giants. They kill everything they love and die alone. Sleep, giants. Rest on the earth as mountains. You were never really here, and our gingham dress daughters have someplace to go. So the through line on this probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but that poem always reminds me of my stepdad. He's pretty big and loud and big-handed and full of his own trauma. And so this is for him. Blue. 1. Can sorrow be a vibrant viscosity? A rising fume that pulls air from lungs to turpentine them on garage walls? Is it work shirts and window trim? The sky's goodbye to the day? Is it water? This paint between our hands and teeth, is it teeth? 2. When I was a child, my stepfather was a house painter, until he was a fall off of a ladder and a workman's comp case. He specialized in the fine, fiddly trim, straight-lined ornamentation of a home. At night, he sat at the high drafting table we could not afford and sketched for hours, dancing other people's cartoon figures through pot smoke. 3. I cannot straight line the blue of you. It rivers into curves in my fingers. You are deluge and outpouring. Your water and thick cerulean paint. I am teeth and hands, grip and mine, mine, mine. 4. Is your art of value? Are you? Is it water? Does this paint we cannot afford keep a body alive? Who owns these blue spattered fingers? No. Sorry, moving on to the next one. And it's another stepdad poem, because that's just the train this one went on. So an important thing to know about my upbringing is that my stepfather was a Vietnam vet. How today finds me. 1. The sound of gnats swarming, tiny motor flies or nanobots to aid your body's farewell. The heat coils to its own smoke signals, confetti, a paper ash flurry, a celebration of doves shotgunned out of flight. There is glass between you and the street. This moment is uninhabitable. The division is not enough distance. Swelter clutches your frame, kissing your face, the heat of an unwelcome lover. It is the shape of a flag, of a mouth sucked dry, a set of arms that end in a gun, hands defined as grip. 2. There is bad coffee. It is a constant. In all the meetings, you can be promised smoked tang and bad coffee. The blonde is neither home nor hearth, a furnace, heat but no comfort in this body like scaffolding, this body for climbing out of, while the blonde is a place marker, a red curve, a bad cup of coffee, and she deserves more. She deserves more than to be the blonde in the story, but you do not have enough grace left in you to grant her that. When the stranger asks, how does the day find you? You say, the same as all the others. What you mean is, all the days are stacked up behind you like cordwood, waiting from one hungry match, the heat of an unwelcome lover. And then, because I thought if I just read stepfather poems, we'd all get sad real quick, I decided to read a poem I haven't read in a while, just because it's pretty and I like it. So, Cuerpo de Amor. The body of flight, grounded. Feathers in air are freedom, a soaring, doubtless kiss of a momentum. In the hand, they are a corpse. Blancas colinas, there is no evidence of how I loved you, like planting seeds with greedy fingers, burying desire in your bed. The flowers between your thighs are not a painting for me. I cannot sate need by devouring stamen and pistil, renaming them fruit and flesh. I apologize then to your hands, still trying to take flight, to the small coo of your voice, the hollow between your breasts, where, born shaftless, I pushed my arrowheads, dug them in with thumbs, and called them seeds. And then I think I'll do one more. But time, right? I think. I don't know how time works either. Yeah. Actually, I lied. I don't think I can do this without vigils, so I'm going to do this one. Sustenance. I cannot eat your lips no matter how many times you press them to mine to offer communion. This love is not a meal, a dining room table, a family painting. We have caught up the bird in flight. Great and angry red-tailed hunter buried her in a rookery and called it home. When the hood becomes new skin, do you dream of a reflection covered in feathers and madness? The great screeching hunger of hunt. I am famished, love. My sorrow is a well down to my core, mouth to hollow gut. I've devoured my cowl. It was not enough. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, HanaLena. Thank you so much for your amazing words and for your really incredible book. I've included a link in the chat if you want to order Letters to the Leader. Yeah, it's actually very interesting you brought up. I didn't think about that. Like, what becomes of this body of text when he's no longer, I'm not going to call him a leader. He's no longer in the position he currently is in. But I still think it's relevant. So many of those poems have such an emotional pull. So thank you. It was an honor to be able to publish it and to call you friend. I also posted a link to her Patreon If you want to stay in touch with HanaLena and her prompts, it's a great way to go about doing that. So thank you so much, and thank you for starting off our quartet reading.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome, of course. Up next, it's a real pleasure to get to introduce this next poet. I've known this poet for a very, very long time. This is actually kind of funny, in the sense of like how these two poets are in relation to one another. This poet now and our next poet. So apparently, in this poet's poetic journey, I was kind of at the start of it, and you'll understand why I bring this up later too. She has grown into such an amazing and powerful and necessary voice. Dania Ayah Alkhouli is also one of the editors to the Shit Men Say to Me anthology that will be coming out in the spring, along with HanaLena and Victoria Lynn McCoy. Those are our three editors for this incredibly, just absolutely important collection of poems by who? I don't know yet. The submissions are still coming in. I'll share a link to where you could submit if you have poems that are in response to toxic masculinity. That's the theme of this anthology. It is poems that respond to toxic masculinity. It's so incredibly important. So she is one of our editors of that, and it actually came from an idea off of one of her Facebook Live readings about having a poem in response to some stupid shit a man said to her. Somebody joked that like, oh, I would read that anthology. And of course, there needs to be an anthology. So that's how that came about. It has been an absolute pleasure to see her grow as a poet, and to have her be such a prominent part of Moontide, not only as an author, but she, along with Ellen, are responsible for our social media and our marketing. Dania is our marketing director, and she is a social media guru. And we are so grateful to have her be part of the Moontide family. Beyond just being an author, she is a part of what makes Moontide Moontide. And her, along with Ellen, I couldn't do what I do with Moontide without the two of you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, the both of you, for making this press be more than I could have ever wanted it to be, and growing. Okay, enough. I'm getting teary. Enough sappiness. I'm going to read the bio that has been provided, and she's going to read poems. Dania is a Syrian writer, editor, nonprofit co-founder, and community organizer born and raised in sunny SoCal. She earned her BA in sociology and her MPA in public policy and administration from California State University, Long Beach. Always sounds weird when I say CSULB. Dania has authored 3 poetry collections, her latest being Contortionist Tongue from Moontide Press, which came out last March. In 2012, she and her mother co-founded the nonprofit organization, A Country Called Syria, a traveling exhibition and set of events showcasing the history, culture, and stories of Syria. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to Dania.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. My audio is good. Everyone can hear everything.
You're a little crackly, a little echoey.
Let's see if I can fix that.
Sorry.
Okay, how about now?
A little bit of the same.
All right.
That's so much better. You got it.
Okay, cool. You just play around with the Zoom settings and you find magic. All right. So I'm really, really honored. Definitely got teary in that introduction as well. But I'm honored to be part of the Moontide family in both marketing and as an author, and just being around such amazing people and poetry. This is what keeps me going. So I'm really grateful. I'm going to be reading a couple poems from Contortionist Tongue, which came out, like we said, this year, and then wrapping it up with one new poem to seal the deal. So I will just go ahead and get started. And the first one I'm going to read is called Chimera. This one seems to be a big hit no matter where I go. And it got analyzed in a sociology class at a college last year or earlier this year. So I was really excited about that. So this is Chimera. I had that dream again. the one where I am pregnant. Mama listens while making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for my brothers. I make my own. Lebne. She folds over the brown paper bag with such symmetry and says, Arab traditions believe dreams of pregnancy mean you're carrying a heavy burden. Muslim, Syrian, American woman, 4 weights the world made too heavy to carry, identities battling inside me, kicking, rolling, too many pulsating heartbeats. How do I birth them into one? Science traditions believe mothers spend eternity carrying the DNA of their offspring post-birth, meaning they carry the DNA of what they birthed with the DNA of what birthed them. So who do they ever become? Lebne, I realize after 3 bites in my loud high school cafeteria is not meant for square white bread, but rather the round, full pita instead. And I wonder, do boys ever have dreams of being pregnant? All right. So this next one I'm going to read is called Building a Bookcase, also from Contortionist Tongue. This was an experimental poem that actually worked out really well. So here we go. Fingers stroke a naked wall, softly draw unspoken measurements, make impressions deep, a foreshadowing of what we've long hungered for, a home to house our stories in languages mastered by bodies before tongues. Skins touch, the lightest grays with the heaviest intentions. Feel raw flesh to find the resting place of rabbit joints. Cut sharp incisions to make our parts fit. Assemble the unit. Stack hips affixing one atop the other and grind away rough edges with sandpaper determination. Slide shelves, wet with glue to hold weights arms cannot one bone at a time. Press firmly, hold, then release. Let dry and finish with a stain. So this poem that I'm going to read is actually called Death Wish, and it is the poem that inspired the Shit Men Say to Me anthology. Yes, I wrote this poem after I asked a guy out, and his response was, typically I go for the more feminine types, but I guess I could give you a chance. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I was like, what? And it just became a whole thing. So this poem was in response to that, but it's also kind of like a nice dedication or a message to sometimes how when we experience so much trauma, when we're told we're too much, when we finally experience something good that allows us to be ourselves, we might end up restricting ourselves because we have that constant fear of, okay, this is going to be the same experience I had before. So this is what this poem is about, inspired by that. So submit your poems for the anthology. We're really excited about it. I have this fear. After seeing man after man after man berate an ambitious woman for being one, while simultaneously being his, I'll never be able to believe in the existence of a man who can recognize the honorable wealth of this amalgamation. But that's not the fear. The fear is that this in turn will subconsciously cause me to restrict myself, to walk on eggshells and self-made shackles, to stay on the safe side for the sake of love and loyalty. Screw my deep-rooted loyalty, it's brought me nothing but ache. I fear, even when he tells me to go, I'll stay. I won't soar. I'll chain myself down, fly at low heights to please his fragile ego. I saw other women do it, and they were safe. Their men stayed, not lovingly, but they stayed, like possessors, proud owners of obedient pets, following nonverbal commands, on cue, unwritten rules. I saw other women soar, break free of those chains, extend their wings beautifully across the horizons, east to west. But their men and their people poisoned their skies, so all at once flying became both their life and their death. And I'm here, left to decide, which way do I want to die? All right, I have two more short poems. This one is actually not from the book. It is called The Death of Enough Generations. It's a dedication to my father who passed away a year ago last month now. And it was inspired by the fact that the hospital where he stayed at and passed away was actually wall to wall with a cemetery. So every day, outside the window of every room in this hospital, you are overlooking a cemetery. And it was very ironic, very painful, very poetic, very interesting, honestly, like a foreshadowing that you don't even realize. So this poem, The Death of Enough Generations, was inspired by that. It takes 6 hours to dig a grave by hand, if you're an expert digger. The Good Shepherd Cemetery glistens greenery through hospital windows. My father's, overlooking a part brimming with trees so tall, they hide the graves below. But my father is a wise man, despite tumor, despite stroke. He knows what does not pulsate beneath bruising flesh and fading scars. 4 months, 3 hospitals, too much pain, and one dying man later. We shovel up secrets. Wonder if it's irony or serendipity that a hospital and a cemetery share earth. The same asphalt below doctors extends out and under aching souls marching behind the funeral of a dead father. Nothing separating them but a copper rusted fence. Dad used to work here, 7 minutes from home. Home. What does that even mean anymore? The cemetery sings 10 o'clock, tells the living of another hour lost in a melody of faint bells. How does a cemetery make money? As in, after every $8,000 plot is sold, what capitalistic use does this land have? Would it not yield more space, more money if we are buried vertically? Or do we strike magma at 14 feet under? Are plots recycled every 200 years, when we can guarantee the death of enough generations to confirm the erasure of the memory of the deceased and the crumbling of his bones to salt? All right, final poem is actually the last poem in Contortionist Tongue. It's called Life After Death, and I kind of like to end all my readings with it because it's probably the most positive poem I've ever written in my life. Usually my poetry is not like upbeat, but you know, we all need a little bit of hope somewhere, sometime. So this is Life After Death. Based off scripture, Mama doesn't call it rain. She calls it water, watches it drip down windows and cheeks, sending us messages, nature's Morse code, tapping on the earth. Soil secrets. I hear it. So much grace. A lullaby to sleep, to live. God tells us about life after death, but he shows us like this, in a super bloom. Lets us taste it with kisses from these buds blossoming after the spill of water on their lifeless threads. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Eric, for having me as well.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing that. And I've never said this to you before, but I am so sorry that I never got to meet your father. I really, really would have loved to. Just everything that you say about him and everything that you write about him, I'm sorry. All right. So moving forward in the quartet reading, we have poets coming out in 2021. So this is what you have to look forward to. Well, not all of what you have to look forward to. We have I think like 9 books coming out in 2021, something like that. I don't know. It's crazy. Maybe 8, 9, 11, 30. Who knows math anymore? It's like time. But I can guarantee that these next two poets that you're going to see are coming out in 2021. They are one of the 9, 10, 30, however many we're putting out. We're putting out a lot. Oh, and by the way, I did include some links while Dania was reading. If you want to buy Dania's book, Contortionist Tongue, there is a link in where you can do that. And also a link about how to submit to Shit Men Say to Me, the anthology. So those links have been posted. If you're curious, they are in the chat. All right, coming up next. So I had mentioned how when Dania was starting like her poetic trajectory, I was hosting an open mic at Long Beach State where she started coming, and then I was the feature at the Ugly Mug in Orange when she showed up to an open mic. So I somehow was very much at the beginning of that journey for her. So this next poet was very much at the beginning of my journey as a poet and eventual publisher. So it's weird how this all works together. When I first started dabbling in poetry, thinking this is something I seriously wanted to do, I went to like an open mic every night of the week. I checked out The Ugly Mug, Two Idiots Peddling Poetry, hosted by Ben Trigg and Steve Ramirez. I went to Coffee Cartel, Redondo Poets, hosted by Larry Kolker and Jim, don't remember the rest of his last name, because really Larry Kolker was the best. Rest in peace, Larry. And I went to Green. It was on a Monday night at the Palmer Room, and Rob Sturma, at the time, it took me months before I found out Rob's name. He was always Rat Pack Slim. That was his stage name. I went to the Poetry Lounge at Greenway Park. Greenway, yeah. And so this man was very much at the beginning of my journey. We became fast friends because of our love of nerd culture, and it is an absolute pleasure to be able to publish his next collection of poetry. So I'm going to read his bio now, because I really could just go on and say really embarrassing things about this man. But I'm not. I'm just going to read his bio, but just want you to know that this is what I love about the poetry community, how we are all connected. We're absolutely all connected. Just going to a reading, be it in person or via Zoom, you never know the impact that you're going to have on another human being, and how that is going to set them on a course of events that are going to inspire and impact others. So Rob's impact on me had a direct impact to Dania decades apart. And it's pretty amazing how we are all so interconnected, and that's the power of poetry, and that's the power of our humanity. So thank you for supporting poetry. Thank you for being here today, because you don't know the impact you're going to make on somebody else. That said, here's the bio. Rob Sturma is a pop culture pundit, the founder and editor-in-chief of the nerdy lit journal Freeze Ray Poetry. See, I mentioned that earlier because HanaLena said that she's an editor for that, as am I. It is a poetry journal that that publishes poetry that has a pop culture flair, be it comic books, wrestling, music. He'll tell you more about it. And he's the editor of pop anthologies such as Aim for the Head, an anthology about nothing but zombie poems, and Multiverse, superhero poems or supervillain poems. You don't have to be a hero to be a comic character. Both on Right Bloody Publishing. His most recent ebook of poems, We All Wear the Mask, is a collection of nerdy plus nostalgic work released during pandemic shelter in place, and he's featured in a number of Keen anthologies. Who uses Keen in their bio? This man. Such as Dark Ink, that's a Moontide anthology about horror poetry. Working Stiff, Learn the Burn Too, and Don't Blame the Ugly Mug. He lives in Oklahoma City, okay. But he is from Los Angeles, California, where he helps keep the torch burning for red dirt poetry and stays forever in love with all things pro wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth that used to be Rat Pack Slim, now Rob Sturma, has been Rob Sturma.
Yeah, technically I was Rob Sturma first. I think my mom would lay claim to that. Thanks, Eric, for that not so embarrassing intro. That worked out pretty well. Decades upon decades of influence, huh? That's awesome. I'm just going to jump in and start reading some poems. These are all going to be in the new. Thank you, Dania. In the new book that I will have out on Moontide next year, called Head v Heart, or Head versus Heart. All hail the new ambassador of awesome, y'all. Because she mandolined and tambourined in through the doorway. She was a strawberry sunshine shaman singing the spell for trouble. She had pictures of wood nymphs flying out of her wallet, was finishing checklists while whistling wind chime backbeats. She turned sharp phrases that were headed on guard to Duel City into pillow fight bear hugs, turned heads with the boomerang gut shot in her voice. The song always came back to her. The song brought friends, and the friends brought refreshments. Folks, there is no audition process to become the new ambassador of awesome. No voting, no scorecard. Some humans were just born with extra diplomacy. Some people are natural sparkle bots. And so this is how she earned her title, one leaf and twig at a time, with extra scoops of elbow grease and heaping helpings of vinyl cracklings. And what you saw once that sun went down, it wasn't a trick of the lighthouse. It wasn't sleight of hand claps. She really did turn on the prayer candles with her corn husk laugh and her promise ring tones. So yeah, she was at least as magic as a wave of wondrous wands, at least as inspirational as orgasm high fives. Of course you fell. She was a professional trapdoor. But damn, could she keep her torch songs ignited. She was a patchwork chanteuse in the making, unstitching your insecurity blankets and fashioning a cape for you. Perfect fashion for when you are rocketing back down to earth. She is still the reason you took flying lessons. And some days you put her records on. Envision her two-stepping in a brandy snifter, singing meta-human three-quarter tango, and you tuck yourself in between her voice and the static. Last twinkle before closing time. And that's a poem about a girl I liked. The great thing about hearing me read is I will always have a nice musical segue. Speaking of a girl I liked, this is called What Do You Get for Someone Who? What do you get for someone who was a goofball for musicals, used to be in a band called the Get Classic Now, did laundry every other Sunday, had days of the week underpants, made pesto, loved cheese tortellini, used to be in a band called the Berlin Wallflowers, sang My Freeze Ray before a show to psych herself up, cheated at solitaire, donated books and CDs, wouldn't throw away the Lucky Chucks, laughed like a sprinkler, hogged the sheets, was all about plants, had a bookshelf full of journals, cried at the same 5 songs every time, used to be in a band called the Crossfire Hurricanes, sang in bed, danced in the shower, hated to do the dishes, loved vacuuming, had a plastic wobbly hula girl on her dashboard, was obsessed with Fables comics. Used to be in a band called Plato Symposium. Used to be in a band called Do the Math. Used to be in a band called Sugar Sweet and the So Are Yous. Used to be in a band called Heartbreak Soup. Trusted like a puppy, had really, really shitty bad nightmares. Sat across the table, nibbled on a breadstick and said things like, you know, I'm thinking of incorporating more kicking into the stage show like David Lee Roth. Played bass like a black widow, fingers crawling across the thick coiled steel. Invented Cuddle Sundays, went to work on a bike, had a parachute tattoo to remind her that it's okay to jump. Made you feel so much better. Was all made up. That's a poem about a girl I made up. And now I got a poem about a ghost. This is called Ghost at an Open Mic. She taps on the mic, whispers, "Is this thing on?" Taps on her chest. "Is this thing on?" She is not afraid of dying in this room. The host says, "Don't go over time," as if time held sway for this apparition, as if she wasn't the definition of timeless. She is afraid that her metaphors are see-through, translucent, that her word choice is not solid. All we know is how ethereal she sounds, how these words will cling to us and leave an indelible mark. "I feel so at home here," she says, and thanks us, as if we didn't gather hoping that she would be here, hoping we would be so gently haunted. And I have one last poem. It's not about a ghost. It's about not drinking anymore. I'm 6.5 years sober right now. So that's something I've done and continued to do during the pandemic. I've wanted to drink a few times. But this, at the very beginning of the pandemic, I put out a chapbook called Drink, Drank, Drunk, which chronicled my love affair with booze and my eventual divorce with booze. And I wanted to write a Tom Waits type of ballad for those of us who really enjoyed drinking, but can't really step into those places anymore. This is Tuesday night at the Sober Bar. Tuesday night at the Sober Bar, one of the regulars sits cross-legged on the bar stool and demands another shot of wheatgrass and a mango smoothie because this shit tastes like a lawnmower. Tuesday nights at the Sober Bar, men sit without swaying, using lines like, "I am so hydrated right now. The impulse control in this place is off the charts. Everyone here knows exactly what they're doing. The late night texts that are composed in these booths, all super deliberate. We've installed a ramp straight to the doorway because we know that 12 steps don't work for everybody. Make your way in at your own pace. This revolving door, it's always open. There's a dude over there slumped in the booth. He's trying to kick caffeine. He's kind of quick to anger, but he's way too slow to properly swing at you. We have a drink special here. It's pineapple juice and club soda, and we call it the Apology. It gets asked for left and right. There are so many apologies in a sober room. Oh, are there meetings here? Yeah, of course. The Advanced D&D group meets here every Sunday. They're currently playing the Pink Cloud campaign, where our heroes have a limited immunity, or at least it feels like they do. It's the beginner's campaign. Okay, speaking of games, Thursday at Sober Bar, it's trivia night with questions like, for 10 points, what have you done in the past 20 years? For 20 points, what could you have done? For 50 points, what do you think an addict is? And for 300 points, why should we believe You've changed. This shit is fun for the whole family. This is a game that everybody wins. And I promise, friends, this sober bar is not a sad place. It's very sharp. It's often extra witty, and the tip jar is stuffed with like $5 bills and a bunch of smart ass quips like, hey, here's a tip. Try using licorice root if you want to quit smoking. Okay, here's another tip. Don't try to smoke it. Last call at the sober bar. And the jukebox has gone from recovery to hang me up to dry. It's rattled off anthems and diversions. It's raised a glass for freedom, and for its last number, it plays a little small change as last call anthem to get these patrons back to their binging Netflix, binging one day at a time, of course. So the lights up, tabs closed, stragglers singing poorly into the night air. The piano has been drinking. Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you. Congratulations on your sobriety and your hydration.
In 2020, man.
Head v Heart will be out in 2021 around April. I posted a link. We don't have pre-order links for Rob's book or Kelly's book coming out, but you can become a subscriber or patron of the press. We have different levels. There's a platinum patron option where you get every single book we publish in 2021, whether it's 8 or 9 or 30, you get them all. And then we also have different other tiers where you get to pick which 3 of the books that you get for the year. So that is always a great thing to do. It supports the press. If you want to ensure yourself a copy of Rob's book or Kelly's forthcoming book, that is a great way to go about it. Holidays are coming up, and they'll be on Moontide Press's website and on our social media. We'll be pushing that. We'll be having special deals. You can purchase patron packages for other people's gifts. If you want to send some poetry to them throughout 2021, we also have mystery grab bags. We're gonna have some Cyber Monday sales. Actually, I will announce them on Black Friday, really. But you know, we'll have some special sales. So if you want to wait and see what those discounts might be, you can do that too. I guess I'm the first publisher that says, no, don't buy it now. Just wait till I give you a sale later. That sounds terrible. Or you could just buy it now because you want to support poetry. So those are great ways so you can get Rob's book and get the next author's book. Speaking of this next author, I got wind of them because of our next author that's being published, Rich Ferguson's book, Everything is Radiant Between the Hates. This is the proof. It just showed up today or yesterday, but I sent it to him, so he has a copy today. Pre-orders for this is going to go live on Monday, and it's going to be awesome. It's a fantastic book, and he is the reason that I know about Kelly. He said, hey, I know this poet. You should read some of her work. And she sent me some poems. And I said, yes, 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 absolutely yes. And it's been, this is what I love about Moontide is just having these amazing manuscripts just show up on my doorstep and just be so overtaken by their power and be able to publish poets that so many more people should know. It is such a gift to be able to get people's work out there into this world, and I'm so incredibly grateful for this opportunity that I get to have. So Kelly's work, I was trying to think of how to describe it, but it's like a welcome seppuku. Like, it's just this incredible evisceration that doesn't lead to death, but it leads to enlightenment. It is such incredible work, and so I'm so grateful that she trusts Moontide Press with her poetry, and I'm so happy to have her be part of the Moontide family. I'm going to read her bio now. Kelly Gray is a writer and educator living among the redwood trees on occupied coast Miwok. Did I say that right? Oh,
got it right. Yep.
I'm terrible at pronunciation. That's fantastic. Land. Kelly's book of poetry, Instructions for an Animal Body, is forthcoming from Moontide Press this summer. I think we're shooting for around June, did we say? Something like that?
Yeah, early June.
Yeah, early June. Like I said, we have like 30 books coming out, so months, days, but yeah, no, June. It's gonna be a great way to bring in the summer. It'll be out before the summer solstice, and I feel like your book has something to do with like the summer solstice. I think there's some mysticism going on there. It explores the tensions between loss and survival, decentering human narratives, flipping constructs about predator and prey, violence and sexuality, and embracing cringeworthy notions of the ugly within. That's just a great way to describe it, and it's absolutely true. You guys are in for a treat with her collection. Kelly's writing has most recently appeared or is forthcoming in Atticus Review, River Teeth, Lunch Ticket, Pretty Owl Poetry, The Nervous Breakdown, Three Elements Review, Cultural Weekly, Paraleon Literary Magazine, Bracken Magazine, and elsewhere. She is currently working on a chapbook of short stories examining the messy intersections of love, abuse, tiger paws, and knives. Ladies and gentlemen, closing out our quartet reading, and don't forget, we will have a Q&A, so start thinking of questions for our poets, which will be typed in the chat for me to moderate and ask that of them. But without further ado, please give it up for Kelly Gray, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for the really nice words. That was great. Thank you. And I wanted to thank you, Rich, for showing up today. This feels super full circle for me. And Eric, I don't know if you remember this, but the first time we spoke, I had just evacuated for the first time this summer, just arrived, got this call from Eric, and was just beside myself, could hardly focus on what was happening, but it was excellent news to get. And yesterday was our first day of rain, and fire season is now over in the woods that I live in. So it feels very full circle to have Rich and Eric here and a wet forest outside. Okay, and I'm just gonna read, I don't talk much in between the poems, but happy to answer questions afterwards. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay. On becoming a whale, first you must take your ear bones and consider the sound of seashell rolled up with echoes of future song. Cut out your elbows, detach your pelvis from your spine and let them float in the space of your body. This is your re-entrance fee to the original amniotic fluids. There was once a whale that said, "I will not go back to land. I will not go back." Okay. This is for anyone that follows. My cat suddenly wants to be with me right now. Greek mythology. This is called augury. The raven Tiresias is telling secrets at the bar. 6 drinks in and 2 snake strikes behind them. They lost their gender in the bathroom, their eyesight in the alleyway. But I am walking creaky-legged, trying to get home when they fly up next to me, and they lean in and they bend in. Can't quite tell if this is man or bird, but they have this way of opening their mouth so wide, asking me to count the feathers that travel down their open beak to the back of where their bra is showing. I have to look in to see for myself. Tongue black, back of throat black, glassy green eyes made of milk. This bird sees birds, throws sparrow wings to the sky and cries out, "This is truth, this is death, I am blind." I'm just trying to get laid, but you're talking to me like you know me, bird. The raven puts its cigarette out in the entrails of a smashed starling found behind the wheel of a Cadillac. Their eyes roll back into their head and the smell of burned wings makes me lick hungry. They start to tell me a story that I already know but forgot 10 years back at another bar. I interrupt them, so lush on rice whiskey and steeped cherries that golden poppies spill from my lips, so full of blossoms they can smell my unfolding within the containment of a body without wings. I just want to know, my own pleasure, where did it go? This bird pulls back to look at my face, petals falling from my eyes. Yes, Tiresias, I remember now how we met. You flew into the shutters, almost dead on the floor among the suitcases and cassette tapes. I took your body in my hands, tied my words to your feet, marked your beak with my blood. I released you through the windows in hopes you would fly my letters home across oceans and rooftops, scattering blood from my wrists so that no one family would feel the weight of my burden. Now you've come back to tell me what you know of me, to right my too wronged way, to caw at my skirt and untie me from this gold-rotted city where I've been held flat against the hills, almost dead on the floor. Now it's your turn. Unbind my eyes from the ground, release me from the relentless growl of 1,000 sleeping babies, all their mothers pushing against doors to keep the sound of the sky from descending, lest they begin to wake, starved. We can fly these streets together, opening all the doors, rattling bassinets, grabbing pigeon after pigeon to toss their bodies to the streetlights, like a map of bird light, leading us past slayed snakes and the intersection of Geary and 20th, where I held him when he died. Tempt me out of this body, wholly untold, bound for joy. Promise me it's here in the prophecy. Promise me, Tiresias, you'll take me home tonight to show me what I cannot see. They hop, bird-like, human-like, foot to foot, wrapping a black wing around me, nest-bound. Okay. This next poem is called 1900. There was a field of sunflowers in Arezzo where we used to bring our journals and undress, our breasts to show them to the sun, spinning around with fractured light in our eyes, pushing our nipples against the thick stalks, dancing all of us, humans and flowers, sharing the dirt, walked on by fascists and made into a film 5 hours and 20 minutes long, shown in irony during a week in art class, taught by our beloved teacher who eventually threw his body off the walls of San Giammano, where he took us to see what real torture was, places we could never dance, knowing what we did of the sight of flower fields outside of our locked chambers. Thanks. Okay. This is 25 acts of relentlessness. Number 1, my fear of death, but really my way of tricking you into thinking I welcome death. Number 2, the rot of capitalism in my post office box, while we still have a post office box, my stack of bills that I leave until the box is so full they threaten to revoke it. Number 3, my period, the way I ruin sheets once a month. Number 4, zombies. I am told it is a hallmark. Number 5, the sound of the ocean while camping, unable to sleep, left wide-eyed by the wait for the next wave to break. Number 6, when you close your eyes to listen to the sound of the plague and hear the rubbing of 1,000 insect wings and the architecture of liberalism, refusing to wear masks as you know the locusts have arrived in the form of women who refer to themselves as goddesses. Number 7, the death of pets specifically. Number 8, my child needing to be fed. Number 9, my hair needing to be dyed. Number 10, the longest wait as coffee grinds, water boils. Number 11, my anxiety pulling in a divot in my stomach, carved out by people who are now dead or that act dead, people that scream at me from graves beneath my feet, which are really just empty spaces waiting to be filled with bodies who no longer want to be near me. Number 12, Dreams about tsunamis that originate from swimming pools filled with gators and the crumbling seaside cliffs that we used to walk beneath, collecting garbage and bull kelp to build sculptures of sea witches. Number 13, my mother's voice caught in my throat. Number 14, waking every night at 11 p.m., gasping for air, hearing plates broken above my head. Number 15, my desire to eat pink donuts. Number 16, my desire to eat pink. Number 17, my desire to eat. Number 18, my desire. Number 19, my capacity to impose beauty where there is none. Number 20, my capacity to stand up when all I want to do is get gut punched so hard I can't do anything but lay on cool linoleum, looking at the underside of a sink that holds the water of my face that I apply and reapply every day. Number 21, my capacity for curiosity, wondering how many people are gut punchers. Number 22, my need to suck the spit from his mouth through the hole in his cock. Number 23, the sixth day, for on the sixth day, I feel the grip in my chest, the whisper that says, you will lose something today, by scythe or by text, by a tree falling on your home. Number 24, my asking, did I love enough? Will they forget my mother's voice in my throat? Will they think that I was kind? Number 25, the bill from my therapist that ensures I have 6 more days, that I can look at my roof without the pull of my psoas, collapsing me into a position that they said I did fetal, even though I am pretty sure that even there, maybe especially there, I was swimming backwards, eating pink tsunamis of broken plates, wondering why all the magic happens in the days after death, like my blood in the shape of a Valentine caught in the sheets of my bed, relentless. Okay. I have 2 more poems. Eric, am I doing okay on time? Great. This poem is called The Unfinding of Me. I think you may be the man on the bus. I have to sneak sideways to look and see the book in your hands. I try to imagine our lives together, us on the bus together, the way we lean against the turns, not wanting to touch the railing together. This is ridiculous because we're already on the bus together. You are sitting there and I am sitting here. You are not looking at me while I am looking at you. Now we know that this new version of you is the same version of me that I have always been. I see a woman with long curled hair and a hand on her heart. I lean in close. Is that you? You blink back like a warm washing of bath water and soft knit. Your love is ceramic, mug-shaped, lichen-scented. The inner windows damp with our touch. I rub spices into the skin of your breasts till you turn browner and browner. I lower my tongue into the liquid. It remains unblistered and I remain unlooking. I see you as a hollowed tree. I lay eggs and rocks in your cavity. Lick the burned bark, the suited mouth of beggars. I take a shovel and dig along the trenches of your roots. Hello, I scream into the world of dirt. You are quiet like the sky above the clouds. A worm retreats. I am wood beetle laying powder at your feet. Give me home. You say nothing but sway your ancient tree sway. I saw you as spider bite, flesh raised and harping for scratch. I saw you as cemetery, an obituary themed park, a register of boxed bones. I saw you as tail end of conversation, the switch of inflection cueing closing. I saw you as dust, I saw you as blow, I saw you settle in the afternoon light. Okay, and I have one more. This is called The Complementary Invocation of the End. Fuck. I may have written my last poem about you. vomited you out into the delicacy of syntax, wet tissue paper bound, hung up on the symbolism, chariot gold. Flick gutter, third finger to thumb. Do we have a word for the way we move one boot over the end of a cigarette, or just blankets and a vague sense of readiness to be done 1,000 times? My lips, ode to exhale. 20 sticks lament the perfect violet flower plant, night blooming musical. There are farmers who know more about the inside of my lungs than your hands knew the inside of my hips, but the soil is the same, blue. When I wrote to you of vulture, I meant hyena, with her howling genitalia, licking the bile of babies while you cried bovine, claiming I was so gentle, tongue on the back of my child neck. My mama said, this is where she licked you. My soft swirls indicate that was her only kindness, which I never had. I'm gonna shave the inside of my thighs, sandpaper your face, because I think you were always crying, threatening to cry. Okay, maybe you only did it once. There are words in my pussy, the first whisper of Lolita from Labia, the way my orgasm took the shape of a 1970s van to drive you home in. Like your mustache was an indicator of truck. Like we know your mother held my future smile in the cut of dress as high as neck, linen, in all the splendor of state and grass and books on the floor, ink. I am heaving in the corner of clouds made of disappearing. No, that's it, that's all. No fee involved, just disappearing. My pussy, a cave. I've had babies through this cave. Vastness in 4. 3 dead, 1 alive, dragging pigmented infant hands against my walls. There, I have said it. You saw the orcs, you knew. I wondered how that felt to you. The slick side of life and death up against your knife that I never should have given you, bleating as you were. Here's a secret. I put one in every poem. I never came with you. I was saving that till the end. That's all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you for those poems. Like I said, an enlightening seppuku. It was incredible. It was so great to hear you read a full set of poems. I've only heard your audio and obviously read your work on the page, so it was great to see you read a full set and just be taken to so many incredible places in your work. Thank you for that. Thank you to all the poets today. Kelly Gray, Rob Sturma, Dania Ayah Alkhouli, and HanaLena Fennel. Now we're going to do a Q&A. If you have a question, please type it in the chat and I will moderate and ask it to the poets. If it's a question for all the poets, that is fine too. Just let me know. So we'll give you a few minutes to type. Hopefully you've got something. If not, I'll have to come up with just weird, embarrassing things. I don't want to do that. To give you guys a few minutes. Couple minutes. Somebody ask a question. Damn it. Questions, people. I told you there'd be a quiz. Oh, we got a question from Rich. Thank you, Rich. All right. This is a question for Kelly. Your work is a wonderful combination of lush, lyrical, ravenous, and razor. Great way to put it. Was that a style that came naturally, or did you work your way towards that?
I grew up in Los Angeles during the 80s and listened to a lot of hip hop. And I think that hip hop and rap actually really influenced what I hear when I want to write. Content is a little different, but there's a place of ego that I need to get into when I'm writing. Often I want to like slam when I'm writing. So I think that's where that comes from.
Awesome. Great answer. Great question. If there's no other questions, You know what? I like kind of where that question went, Rich. So I'm going to do a lightning round. So people think of other questions, but I really like where that came. So I'm going to kind of ask the same thing in the sense of your style. I'm going to specifically ask, is that something that came naturally, or did you have to work your way towards? I see another question. I'm going to go this lightning round question, but keep the questions coming because I will come back to them. So real quick, of the three other poets, your style, is that something that came naturally or you worked your way towards? Rob, Sturma, I'll go with you.
I worked my ass off to be able to construct. I mean, I studied a lot of poets whose work I really appreciated and kind of like saw how they did it under the hood and, you know, hoped that I could do it without being too derivative. And that's really the biggest challenge, is finding that part of your voice that's a Rob Sturma poem as opposed to a knockoff Jeff McDaniel poem. You know what I mean?
Nice, nice. If you're going to knock someone off, it sounds like you're going to like take a hit on Jeffrey McDaniel.
Don't start that rumor.
Dania, what about you?
Similarly to what Rob said, it definitely takes a lot of work. I look back at my earlier stuff and you know, we go through different workshops and different classes and you learn what works for you and what doesn't. You know, I had like a bit of a dip halfway through my poetry experience where I was trying to follow what looked like was the right way to go. And then I kind of came back and found what my original voice and purpose was in writing. So it just kind of ebbs and flows. And honestly, you go through things that change you and your perspective in life that impacts how you write as well.
Awesome. Thank you. HanaLena.
I would say I definitely worked towards it, but I work towards it in the way that I work towards everything. I'm an incredibly greedy person, and I just love absorbing information and influences and random facts. And so I don't think that I work in a linear path towards my voice and my poetry. I think I just kind of like accumulate into a tempest, and then that becomes something else.
Speaking as an editor of your work, yes, non-linear, very true. Elizabeth has a good question. Dania, how do you negotiate the boundaries between language, culture, and the page?
Not a loaded question at all, right? It's a good question. Really, I've always turned to writing as a place of escape. You know, being from a community that's not always welcome or seen, this is kind of the one place that I'm able to express everything. So personally, I don't hold back, and I don't ever feel like there's a culture clash between being Arab, American, or Muslim. And I make sure that I allow that to exist as is on the page. And I do have poems in my book that have Arabic in them, and I do try to write a little bit in both languages when I'm putting that together. So my biggest takeaway for myself is embrace that identity and put that into the page, because this is the one place I can be as authentic as I want to be and I deserve to be.
I love that answer. I love that response and the way you view that. Thanks, Dania. Leanne has a question. I think this is to everyone, so we're going to do a lightning round question for you guys. Some poets are more image-based while others sound. If one was your starting point, how did you work to incorporate both? And I'm going to go in reverse order this time. Actually, the order in which you read. HanaLena, you're up first. Image-based or sound, which is a starting point, and how do you work to incorporate both?
Usually actually neither. I'm incredibly touch-based. And so when I'm working on a poem, I will tend to kind of just sink into my body or into a moment or into a craving. And that will get me a lot of places, I think.
Cool.
So I do want to point out, I think a lot of poets also have a lot of music background. So I know I'm on that. I know Rob is. And so that always kind of ends up in places too. Even when you're not following a form, sometimes you're following a rhythm.
Excellent. Dania.
I'm definitely more image-based, or I strive to be more image-based. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever actually incorporated sounds besides that last poem that I read today, Life After Death, where I talk about the sound of rain and water. Typically, I don't incorporate sound. And I think that's kind of interesting on my part. Like, okay, maybe I should look into that a little bit more. If I talk about sounds, it's usually in relation to like the sounds of people that I love or their voices. So I bring it back to imagery. But that's a really interesting question that's actually making me reflect a little bit more about how I write and what I write about.
Okay. Rob.
I definitely started as a sound guy. I was a rapper before I was ever a poet. And I've written music, and I think that's always been a big part of how I write. I try to hear the musicality of what like how it sounds as I'm writing. But I think also in developing my voice is where the visual stuff kind of came in. Again, like a lot of the poets I really respect and admire had just these incredible moments of imagery, at least a couple in every piece that I really admired by them. And so it's kind of like taking the skills you already have, which are, I know I can make it sound okay, but like what images am I putting in there? What images am I selling, I guess, kind of at the end of the day. I know that sounds like really gross and capitalistic, and I don't mean it that way. I just mean selling, like giving the performance, what works in performance. So cool. That's right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty visually motivated when I'm starting to write something, but I also would say visual plus an idea or an emotion that I really want to get across through what I'm putting in the reader's mind's eye. Once I get that out, which is kind of like similar to vomiting, it's just like it has to get out, then I will go back and I'll revise what I'm hearing and the musicality to the poem and where I want to do pauses or draw out. And that's, I usually don't revise my visuals very much, but I really get like nitty gritty about how I want it to sound. But it's almost like two distinct processes. There's also something for me that's really important about looping in a poem, where I want to start with something and take the reader really far away from it and then like slam back to it at the very end. And that has as much to do with visuals, emotion, and the sound of it at the very end.
Great answers, you guys. Thank you. Really great question, Leanne. I really like kind of that idea of being image-based or focus on the musicality of the work, and how do you reconcile the two. So really strong question, Leanne. Any other questions for our poets today? I was going to say nothing's off the table, but yeah, probably some stuff's off the table. Nothing craft-wise is off the table. Going once, going twice. All right, well then I have we'll finish off with a lightning round question. This is going to come from me. When I was going through my MFA, I was told that, like, oh, you've got to be able to write at any time, because we're like we were studying Wanda Coleman, and there's this really great story that my one of my professors and mentor, Charles Harper Webb, used to share in one of our classes about Wanda Coleman, how she would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and churn out poems before she had to take care of her kids, and then go off to work. And I mean, she was just a machine of a poet. She like knew what she had to do, and she just made it a part of her life, and that worked for her. So it was this idea of like, you kind of just have to write whenever you can, wherever you can, and make that happen. And it was always really stressful for me as a poet, because I don't operate that way per se. And I remember going to a writer's retreat at Idlewild, and it was a very freeing moment where Eloise Klein-Healy said, no, it's okay. You can just have your preferred space or your preferred time of day to write, and that's all right. That's just how you work. So that's going to be my question for the four of you to end this off, the lightning round question. what is your preferred time and space to write? Whether it be, at a coffee shop, late at night, early in the morning. Just what is your preferred time and space? That's going to be our lightning round question. So I'm going to start with we're going to go backwards because Kelly looks deep in thought. So I'm going to catch her while she's not ready. Maybe not. Maybe she's ready.
I'm ready. I like that question a lot. It's easy for me because I'm a single mom, so I write when I'm alone, when my child is not in the house. That really works for me. But I also recently read a really great essay, I think it was in Brevity, about like writing under the confines of the pandemic and how our brains feel broken. And I just wanted to say it was really eye-opening for me because one of the things that the author said was, we're not only writing when we are putting pen to paper. Like when you're going out and having a breakup, you're like in the process of writing. When you're tending your garden, you're in the process of writing. And that has really let me off the hook where I'm like, cool, I can like go out and do my life and that counts as my writing time. And I just wanted to share that because I think it's
that's awesome. I think that's a really great insight. I really like that, and I believe that 100% too, because I'm a very obsessive writer. So like when I'm working on a poem, like I can't really do anything else, even if I'm going to the gym or going to work. Like that poem is still working itself out in my head, even if I'm not sitting at my desk. So I love how you brought that up, and I believe that wholeheartely. And that's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Let's go with Rob.
I've morphed into an early morning writer. I used to, back when I threw back, a bunch of beers, I would do it mostly late at night because that's kind of the culture of, late night with your glass of wine or your beer or your whiskey or what have you. And now that I'm like a boring old man, it's all about the morning. It's like 6 a.m. It's a cup of coffee. And once it's about halfway down, that's when I start to just add a little music, just something kind of moody, just to kind of, I try to get as emo as possible, if that makes any sense. I just, if I put out a song that probably will make me cry or make me think about like someone who was associated with that song, then, that's the fuel, that's the thing that like, it may not blossom into anything that ends up on the page or in a book, but I at least try to do about 20 minutes of I just call it catharsis coffee. So,
nice. Thanks, Rob. Very good. Dania?
I don't actually have a time of day or a process like that. I do find that when I'm out at a coffee shop, for example, and I need to get writing done, that's where I go. I escape like everything that I have around me to just give myself that time. But similar to what Kelly said, when people ask me like, oh, when do you find time to write? Whenever something happens and I feel a poem coming on, I will give myself the space to write down as much of it as I can. Whether it's 3 a.m. in the middle of sleep and it comes to me, I grab my phone and like jot it down, or else I'm gonna lose that thought. Or just experiencing whatever emotions I'm going through. Like Kelly said, this pandemic has affected so much, and 2020 is hard on all of us in so many different ways that I felt like I had writer's block. And in my head, I was like, no, I think this is just my brain gathering whatever is going to be coming out later. So I'm okay with that. The pressure to like, you have to have a system, you have to have this like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour or like once a week kind of thing sometimes gives added pressure that has like an adverse effect on writing. So that's just my process personally.
It's yeah, I think it's different for everybody, so it's great to hear these answers. HanaLena?
So I think in a way that comes as a surprise to no one, I'm the exact opposite of you in that if I'm not just constantly jotting things down, I lose them entirely, and they're never going to come back. The poem, once it's out of my head and on the page, I can play with it and work with it, but I'm not working with it in my head. I'm working with it on the page. So I'm constantly writing notes, a lot in my phone actually. I'll write entire poems in my phone just to get them out, and then they're voice to text and they make no sense, and so probably just come out after editing as a completely different poem. I do tend to find that I write in the afternoon just because it's the only free time I really have in a day. I have a million children, and they're always in my space. And sometimes if I'm having a hard time writing, I will just take all of those notes, and some of them are just scraps of paper all over my house, and I'll kind of pile them on my bed around me, and I'll just look at them until a poem happens. And if I don't do something writing wise, even just if I'm watching TV in the day, I have a hard time going to sleep. So I will have to kind of like, oh, that's what I missed today. I have to get this out. So
Awesome.
I'll write while I'm watching TV. Like, I just have a notebook in my coffee table that I'll just pull out and start writing. Sometimes I watch while I'm watching cartoons. I write while I'm watching cartoons too.
Well, thank you very much. That was an awesome answer. Thank you for all the questions, those of you guys who asked. This was a really awesome quartet reading. Thank you so much. Let's give it up one more time for HanaLena Fennel, Dania Ayah Alkhouli, Rob Sturma, Kelly Gray, everybody, your featured readers and Moontide authors for the day.